Aloha mai kako. Good morning. This is the May 6th, 2020 Land Use Commission meeting being held using interactive conference technology, linking video conference participants and other interested individuals via a Zoom internet conferencing program in order to comply with the state and county official operational directives during the current pandemic. I'm going to ask participants to mute yourselves while you're not talking. The LUC is recording electronically and will post a copy or link of this recording on its website as soon as the hearing is after the hearing as is practicable. In addition, the LUC is streaming the hearing via YouTube, and it will be accessible to the public during and after the hearing. Those interested can locate it by searching for the State Land Use Commission channel on YouTube. This Zoom conference technology allows the parties and each participating commissioner to individually remote access the meeting proceeding via their own digital devices. I'm the chair, Jonathan Lee K.K. Scheuer. I'm now going to actually ask for the record the following people to acknowledge that they are participating in this. So unmute yourself when I call your name and say here or I. Commissioner Axon.
Here.
Chang.
Good morning, I'm here.
Okuda.
This is Gary Okuda. I am here.
And Commissioner Wong.
Present.
Those are our commissioners on Oahu. Additionally, on Oahu are the LUC Executive Officer Dan Orodenker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm present.
Chief Clerk Riley Hakoda.
Present.
Scott Derrickson of our staff.
Present.
Okay. And Jean McManus, our court reporter.
Here.
Commissioner Cabral is on Hawaii Island.
Yes, I am present.
Commissioner Ohigashi is on Maui.
Here.
And I believe we are missing our Kauai Commissioner, Dan Giovanni. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll call it.
There are currently 8 seated commissioners and we have 7 present, a quorum. Also with us is our Deputy Attorney General, Linda Chow.
Here.
Okay. I will call for presence of the parties later in the call. Our first order of business is adoption of the February 5th, 2020 minutes. Are there any corrections or comments on the minutes?
This is Nancy, and I'll move to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, one moment, Commissioner Cabral. I just want to confirm for the record, the commission staff has received no testimony related to this meeting, including related to the minutes.
I'm trying to get you in the meeting.
I just muted Riley. Confirming with Scott Derrickson and Dan Orodenker, we have received no public testimony today on this agenda, including related to the minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I heard no corrections or comments on the minute. There is a motion to approve from Commissioner Cabral. Is there a second?
This is Gary Okuda. I second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Okuda. A motion's been made by Commissioner Cabral and seconded by Commissioner Okuda to adopt the February 5th, 2020 minutes. In the interest of real transparency, I'm going to do a roll call vote on this just to make sure that the record is incredibly clear. I can do it, or Dan, if you want to do it.
I can do it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cabral,
Yes.
Commissioner Okuda,
Yes.
Commissioner Giovanni is absent. Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Axon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ohigashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Chair Scheuer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The minutes are adopted unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is the tentative meeting schedule. So will you continue, Mr. Orodenker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do not have any other meetings scheduled for May at the moment. We are anticipating June restart and a lifting of the executive order and travel ban. That may not be correct, and we may have to adjust some of these meetings to video conferences. We will surely let the public and the commissioners know if that occurs. However, on June 10th, we are scheduled to begin the hearings on Hawaii Memorial Park on Oahu. On June 24th, continuation of Hawaii Memorial Park. On June 25th, we will be on the Big Island for the church matter, the Barry matter, Hawaii Island Land Trust, and a declaratory ruling with regard to short-term vacation rentals filed by the County of Hawaii. On July 8th, we will be continuing the Hawaii Memorial Park matter if necessary. On July 9th, we will be on Maui for a Central Maui landfill matter, Kwana Ranch, acceptance of the environmental assessment for the Lanai matter, and adoption of the Pulele Hua order. On July 22nd, we will be in Hilo for the University of Nations Bencourt matter. That will also be on July 23rd. On August 12th, we will be in Hilo, for the Hawaii Island Land Trust matter to amend conditions. That's also scheduled for August 13th if necessary. On August 26th, we will be on Maui for the Hano Hano matter to amend conditions. That's also tentatively scheduled for the 27th. In September, we will be on Maui for the Pahaku extension of time matter on the 9th, and on the 10th, we will also be on Maui for the Sea Brewer bifurcation matter. That matter will be continued to September 23rd. And on September 24th, we will be on Maui for the A&B Windward Hotel matter. October 7th, we will be in Hilo for the U of N Bencourt matter. And on the 8th, we will also be taking up any final matters for the Barry and Church petitions. And that is as far, I'm sorry. On November 4th, we will be hearing the PVT application. That's a special permit on Oahu. And also on Oahu on the 5th for the Gentry DOA extension of time. And that takes us through the end of the year.
Great. Thank you very much. Oh,
I'm sorry, we do have matters scheduled for December tentatively right now. Kaylee and Malka on Kauai on December 2nd and 3rd. And December 16th and 17th. December 16th in Hilo and December 17th on Oahu for the Honolulu matter. Sorry, Mr. Chair, we usually don't go out that far, but we've got a lot of things backed up.
understood. Thank you very much, Mr. Ordenker. Commissioners, are there questions for Dan? Commissioner Cabral.
I would just ask that the staff send us that entire calendar. I think the last printed report I had that might still be active just took us through maybe July. So I would love to mark my calendar soon.
Okay, we will forward that on to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ordenker. I'm going to pause for a technical check. Is there somebody on the commission staff who's monitoring the YouTube?
Yes, I am.
And
Yes.
can you confirm its availability? Because I've received an indication that outside parties are not able to find it.
Okay.
Apologize for the inconvenience, commissioners and members.
Give me a moment to check on that, but
Okay.
go ahead and continue.
Deputy Attorney General, do we have to suspend meeting till we correct this?
I don't think so, but if it's only going to be a few minutes, we might as well wait for it.
Well, I can confirm. I see the stream. I see it up now.
Okay.
It is
um,
live streaming with a 20-second delay.
Okay. At the same address that was provided.
Correct.
Okay, I'm not able to pull it up either using the link on the agenda. And apparently OP staff are not able to.
Ask them to try to refresh their
Browser.
screen.
Okay, but sorry, Linda, you were fine with going ahead? Ms. Chow?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Our next agenda item is an action meeting on docket number A17-804, Hawaiian Memorial Life Plan Limited, to consider an extension of time for decision-making, to hear the petition to amend the Conservation Land Use District boundary into the Urban Land Use District for approximately 53.449 acres of land at Kaneohe, Island of Oahu, State of Hawaii, TMK number 145033, a portion thereof, and Lot 1, due to the current worldwide health crisis and the accompanying state and county directives in place for public health concerns. Will the parties for docket A17-804 please identify themselves for the record?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission, Curtis Tabata, Benjamin Matsubara, appearing on behalf of the petitioner, Hawaiian Memorial Life Plan.
Good morning, Mr. Tabata.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission, Deputy Attorney General Donna Puna on behalf of the State Office of Planning.
Thank you, Ms. Apuna. Honolulu?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Raymond Young, staff planner representing the City and County of Honolulu.
Okay, and interveners.
Good morning, everyone. This is Grant Yoshimori, intervener pro se.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now let me update the record. On January 22nd, 2020, the Commission met at the Ko'olau Ballroom Conference Center in Kaneohe, Hawaii for an action meeting on this docket to consider the petition to amend the Conservation Land Use District boundary into the Urban Land Use District, and we began proceedings on this matter. On April 20th, the parties, except for the Department of Planning and Permitting, submitted a stipulated agreement to extend time for decision-making an additional 90 days on this matter. DPP submitted their signed stipulation on April 28th via email. On April 30th of this year, the Commission conducted a pre-hearing meeting experiment with the parties and the intervener and the LUC staff to familiarize everyone with the Zoom meeting technology, and we also mailed the May 6th, 2020 notice of the agenda to the parties and to the statewide email and the Oahu mailing lists. I'll briefly run over our procedure for the day. First, I will recognize that if any written public testimony has been received. If it has been received, I will summarize it. After completion of the public testimony portion of the proceedings, we will take up consideration of whether or not a 90-day time extension to complete the DBA proceedings is warranted in this case. The petitioner, the City and County of Honolulu, the State Office of Planning, and the intervener, Huio Pikoiloa, will be given the opportunity to comment. Are there any questions from the parties on our procedures for today? Petitioner?
No questions.
OP?
No questions.
City?
No questions.
Intervener?
No questions.
Great, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair,
Commissioner
Chair,
Chang,
yes, I'd like to make a disclosure.
please proceed.
My father recently passed away, so Hawaiian Memorial Park assisted on the funeral services for him. So I wanted to disclose that.
Commissioner Chang, I'm very sorry to hear about the passing of your father. Do you believe that this will in any way affect your ability to be fair and impartial on this matter?
Oops. No, I don't believe it will impact my ability. I'm sorry I didn't say that initially, but no, I believe I can be fair and objective.
Okay.
Thank
Are
you.
there any objections from any of the parties to Commissioner Chang's continued participation in this matter?
Commissioners, no objections, and we send our deepest condolences.
No objections and our, too.
The city has no objections.
Okay.
Intervener has no objections.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Are there
very
any-
much, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. And again, we're sorry. Any further disclosures from the commissioners? We've all disclosed, I think, at the first meeting on this docket, a number of relationships we have to this project, and those disclosures were noted and no objections were filed. Are there any further new disclosures? Hearing none. Confirming again, as I did regards to the minutes, that no written testimony has been received from the public on this matter. Mr. Derrickson, Mr. Hakoda, and Mr. Ordenker?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will give each of the parties an opportunity to speak to the proposed time extension, beginning with the petitioner representative, Mr. Tabata.
Thank you, Chair. The petitioner has agreed to sign off on the stipulation to extend the 365-day deadline up to 90 days. We recognized the unprecedented crisis that we are currently going through, and we are prepared for the extension of the deadline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tabata. Are there any questions for the petitioner from the commissioners? Seeing none, Office of Planning.
The Office of Planning has no objections to the extension. We believe it's reasonable and fair under the circumstances. Thank you.
Any questions for OP from the commissioners? City and County of Honolulu.
No questions.
Okay. Any questions for the City and County of Honolulu from the commissioners? Commissioner Okuda.
This is Gary Okuda. Chair, can we ask the city if they also agree with the stipulation or the extension?
Please, City.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the city does agree with the stipulation, and we have no issues with it.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Commissioner Okuda?
This is Gary Okuda. No follow-up.
Okay. Anything else for the city? If not, Mr. Yoshimori.
The interveners agree with the stipulation.
Commissioners, are there any questions for the interveners? Seeing none. Commissioners, any final questions for any of the parties on this matter? If not, commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Okuda.
Mr. Chair, this is Gary Okuda. Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that the stipulation to extend the deadline be accepted by the Land Use Commission, and any deadline required by HRS section 205-4 or any other deadline provided or required by statute be so extended by 90 days.
Second.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Okuda has made a motion and Commissioner Ohigashi has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion from the commissioners? Commissioner Okuda.
Mr. Chair, this is Gary Okuda. I believe the parties, number one, have come to an agreement based on their statements on the record that this COVID pandemic does create not only good cause, but an unprecedented requirement or need for the stipulation to allow us to properly consider all the facts and evidence in this case. I also believe the stipulation is consistent with the governor's proclamation that was announced and issued yesterday night, specifically at pages 16 of the proclamation, which specifically suspends the application of HRS Chapter 91. And it states that to the extent necessary, deadlines, and I quote, deadlines may be waived or suspended. And on page 17 of the proclamation also states that to the extent that hearings or proceedings are not covered by Chapter 91, and I quote, administrative hearings not subject to Chapter 91 to the extent necessary such that at the sole discretion of the department or it says of OF, but it should be or agency, any such hearing may be conducted by telephone or video conference. It continues on to also say any deadlines may be waived or suspended. And it also continues on with further words. So in other words, the proclamation that was issued by the governor is also consistent with the stipulation. And for those and other good reasons and good cause in the record, I would ask that the motion be granted.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Okuda. Does anybody else wish to discuss the motion before us? If there's no further discussion, I'll note that I'm thankful for the parties for your working on this under these extraordinary circumstances that we're in, so that we can continue to do our jobs as we move forward. If there's no further discussion beyond that, Mr. Ordenker, I'll ask you to poll the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion by Commissioner Okuda was to accept the stipulation by the parties and extend any deadlines required by statute by 90 days. Commissioner Okuda,
Yes.
Commissioner Ohigashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Cabral, Commissioner Cabral,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Axon,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Chair Schreier.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes with 7 votes. It is unanimous.
Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is an item for discussion and action, and if necessary, about how the LUC will be dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr.
Chair,
Commissioner Wong.
just have a question. Do we, if the city doesn't want to stay, or the intervener, or even the petitioner don't want to stay, they could log off, right?
They could certainly log off, and if they wanted to, follow it on YouTube.
Right.
If they wanted to, since they won't have, OP will continue to have a
Yeah,
role.
right.
So
I'm just giving them the out if they need to. Curtis.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. I actually have no place else to go right now. So if it's okay with everybody, I'll love to stick around and observe.
Okay. We're happy to have you. So if we, Commissioner Wong, are you satisfied? Can we move on?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to give them an up if they wanted to. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you very much. As we navigate through this, Mr. Ordenker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In looking at the current crisis and staff's experience with economic crises that we've had in the past, it is not uncommon and is actually expected that subsequent to restart, for lack of a better word. While the economy is still down, it's highly likely that a lot of projects will have trouble with continued funding, have trouble moving forward, or have trouble meeting various deadlines that are contained in the decision and orders that we have proposed, mainly due to the crisis and the economic downturn. In an effort to expedite those matters, staff is considering a proposal, or is putting forward a proposal for the commission's consideration, phrase that better, to create a subcommittee of 3 commissioners that would be empowered to handle motions for time extensions that come in the next 3 to 5 years, depending on how the commission feels about it, rather than having us go through a hearing and go through an entire proceeding. The proposal would require that a petitioner submit a request for a time extension in writing, along with the good cause and various other requirements under Chapter 205 for the passage of such an extension, and that interested parties be noticed and that there be an opportunity to respond before the subcommittee would make any decisions. And there's also, in our thoughts, a procedure for reconsideration or dispute of those decisions by the committee. This would require a rule change. Our intent would be that this rule change would have a drop dead date on it, as determined by the commission. This is one of the few ways we think we can help expedite and process these in the post-COVID-19 era and help keep costs down for developers who may already be struggling. And we ask for your comment.
So, Mr. Ordenker, the proposal is to draft, and the specific question you're asking for the commission?
The specific question that I'm asking is whether or not this type of a rule amendment is something the commission would like to entertain. I mean, I can draft something up and put it in front of the commission and have it approved at a later hearing, but I didn't want to go through a rule amendment, drafting a rule amendment without the commissioner's input as to whether or not this seemed to be a good idea.
Okay. Commissioners, beginning with Commissioner Cabral.
Thank you, Nancy Cabral here. I think it's an excellent idea because often it's amazing the amount of effort, money, time put in together for really a sometimes very administrative type situation. I would recommend that of the 3 or possibly 4 that would be on such a committee, that our commission would vote to be who those 3 or 4 would be as opposed to an appointment, and that we should also always have at least 1, if not 2 alternates in the event one of the 3 is not able to hear a case in the timely manner needed or something, that the alternate would from the beginning of that step into that position so that it's not held up by someone's individual calendar of some sort. That's my suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabral. Commissioners? Commissioner Wong, and followed by Commissioner Okuda.
Chair, I agree with this, including Commissioner Cabral's statement of having an alternate just in case one of the group couldn't make it. The only other thing I was wondering is, will the AG sign off on this? Is this, I mean, legal, or is it, what I'm trying to say is it possible in legality wise?
Deputy AG Chow.
Well, we'd have to see what the final rule that comes out, because I think that's what Mr. Ordenker is proposing, that he's going to draft something, and once the final rule comes out, then we will review it for legality. But I think we can go forward and consider the rule.
So the other question I have is, would it be, do we have to go through that process of, 90, that public hearing and all that, then go back to us and then go to the governor for sign off? Or is it like a special case?
Well, so under the 7th emergency proclamation, and I apologize, I was a little busy yesterday and did not have a chance to read the 7th proclamation. But I believe that there was a provision in there, as cited earlier, for the rulemaking, standard rulemaking procedure to be varied under this emergency proclamation. And so because it's, in response to that, it may come under emergency proclamation and be have more flexible in the procedure.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
regardless of whether or not, if it does fall under the emergency proclamation, we'll take advantage of that. If it does not, we will work with the Attorney General to do an expedited hearing process, public hearing process, and an expedited return to the commission. The administration is anxious to come up with ways to assist the business community in navigating through this economic crisis. And we believe that we can expedite any signatures that are required if we have to go through the normal process, both at the director's office, DBED director's office, and at the governor's office.
Thank you.
Thank you,
The only holdup to the process might be the requirement to go through the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. Because I'm not sure if they are meeting during this time, but again, we can look to ways to expedite the process.
Yeah, they are in fact meeting during this period, and but I believe that we'll get a check off from the staff at the Small Business Regulatory Review Board that there's no impact. So
okay, thank you.
This won't affect small businesses.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong, and the comments from Deputy AG Chow and our executive officer. Commissioner Okuda.
This is Gary Okuda. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask for two things to be considered by any proposed rule. Number one, which has been discussed, which is to make it as a practical matter, something that achieves whatever goals we have for time extensions without requiring really unnecessary submission of unnecessary documents or paperwork or anything like that. I'm not saying that people who are requesting extensions shouldn't have to make out a basis for good cause, but I would ask that the rule take into account that there not be an extensive need to have to recreate a docket submission or anything like that. The second thing I would ask about any proposed rule is that to the greatest extent possible, it take advantage of processes and procedures to have transparency for the public in general. In other words, even if we are trying to give a more, and I don't want to use the word expedited process, but maybe a more, a better process to move things along. At the same time, not only should there be actual notice being given or actual fairness to the public, but there really should be the rule designed so that people would have the perception that they are being treated fairly. Because if there's a belief or conclusion, even if the belief or conclusion is incorrect, that certain segments of the public have not been treated fairly or with transparency, that can undermine faith in government. And I think it's important that when we do things here, we also have it as a goal to have faith in government and trust in government by everyone, all sectors to the greatest extent possible. So I would ask that any proposed rule, be designed to encourage or the issue of transparency and participation, with the understanding that we don't want things without good cause to drag on unnecessarily. And the final point regarding that is, and I think it was raised at one of the HCPO conferences, talking about the disaster on Kauai and the beneficial things that came from it. Disasters actually are good things in this sense. It makes us think differently and do things which we normally wouldn't try when there isn't a disaster. I think this Zoom technology, for example, is something that we should look at continuing even after we get back to some type of normal where, in other words, even if there is or are land use commission hearings or meetings that take place in the way where everyone gets together in a room, use of technology can be something that that can really be used to encourage participation and transparency and knowledge of government. So that's basically my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Okuda. Commissioner Ohigashi.
Dan, what kind of actions are we speaking of? Is it only to extend time, or are there other types of actions that this panel would handle?
We're mostly talking about time extensions. I don't really see this panel handling much else because changes, amendments to DBAs would require a much higher level of good cause than simply time extension. I mean, in the past, our past experience was, for instance, after the economic crisis, the economic downturn a few years back, is that 9 times out of 10, the excuse was, I can't find funding right now because of the economic crisis. So I need an extension on, commencement. Those are the types of situations we're looking at. I think that the committee would have the power, if somebody tried to file something in an expedited process, to say, no, we're not going to handle it this way, and make the recommendation that they actually file with the commission. So the answer to your question is, we're really just looking at time extensions.
The next question is some form of the master appointment in Chapter 91 available for this type of situation? In other words, appointment of a master. I think Chapter 91 allows for appointment of masters of up to 3 people.
Yeah, I'd have to discuss that with the AG. I mean, this is not a process that we felt could be handled by anything that's currently in the statutes or the rules. Our appointment of a special master usually requires that they return to the commission as a whole for approval. Our rules essentially allow for the appointment of a hearings officer, but doesn't allow for an expedited process.
I was just thinking that in a master or a hearings officer situation, certain procedural type of issues can be handled by the hearings officers that do not go to the substance of it. Do you plan to use this process so that you can, I guess, short or limit the amount of discussion that on procedural issues before the commission? In other words, it seems to me that if we submit a docket to a master's, they can probably handle a lot of the procedural matters in that docket as they come up, rather, if they're not substantive, rather as a hearings officer rather than a.
Our rules aren't set up for an expedited process right now, even if we appoint a hearings officer.
Okay.
So it's not really, I mean, we've always had that available to us, but that just saves the commission time. It doesn't save the petitioner's time because they still have to go through our regular 1515 process for any amendment.
The last question I have is that, would you be able to set standards in the rules that say, well, if it's under a year requested, it goes to this, to these people, to the masters or the 3 committee. And if it's over a year, it automatically has to be asked for the commission. Or, you know, I'm using just a year, but it could be 6 months or 3 months or.
We can provide that. I mean, this is at the commission's discretion. I mean, my intention with this hearing was simply to float the idea, see if it has any, if there's a positive reaction by the commission, then draft a set of rules, have the commission review them, make comments, and adjust them to whatever the commission feels is appropriate.
I just, my last comment is that I think we should look at the time requested as well as the amount of requests that may come in. In other words, if you give them 6 months, whether or not they're going to need an additional 6 months, and whether or not a second additional 6 months requires the commission to review. That's all. That's what I'm concerned.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ohigashi,
Thank
for
you.
those great questions and comments. Commissioner Chang, Don Chang.
Thank you, Chair. I just have 3 comments for the executive director to consider. I mean, I think it is worth pursuing this, and let's see what you come up with. But first comment is related to the Sunshine Law, because I'm assuming that this 3 committee is not going to be doing work within the Sunshine. So it is under the 92-2.5 permitted interactions of members. And if so, or is this an exception to that? But if it is intended to be that permitted interaction of 3 board members outside of the Sunshine Law, that one, we do provide a provision for public comment, as I think you were describing at the beginning. When a petition is filed or a motion is filed, the parties have an opportunity to comment. And we also provide the public an opportunity to comment, so that committee considers all of those comments as they are considering the time extension. And that 3, that when the committee takes action, that it is reported back to the full Land Use Commission at the next available meeting, so that there is a record of that, and full opportunity for the board should someone come forward or have some kind of disagreement. Because I am anxious about post-COVID and the cutting short community participation. So those would be my considerations as you draft the proposed rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I will take those comments into consideration.
Commissioner Axon, were you gesturing to speak? No? Commissioners. Is there anything further discussion on this? I'd like to thank the staff for being proactive and thinking about how we can do our work better in this crisis and resulting from this crisis that we're in. One thing that I find appealing about this, beyond doing a slight easing of the burden on projects who will need an extension from this, is that beyond that, I found in my years on the commission, there's this corollary. Warren Buffett is famous for saying, right, when the tide goes out, you see who's been skinny dipping, right? You see who's like over leveraged, who's not wearing any clothes. But I think that the corollary to that is that I've seen a lot of projects come in front of us where people have asked for time extensions, and you ask why, and they're like, oh, well, the economy was bad. And it's clear that for some of them, the economy was bad and that caused it. And for some of them, even in the best economy, this project was never going to go forward. So I think an early and efficient process, if there are great projects that are otherwise ready to go forward that we've already approved, but they need this time extension because of the current economic crisis we're in, I think it's good to hear from them now and get that evidence on the record now, rather than they stall to the end of the deadline and then come to us and say, oh, wait, we need more time. Yeah, it was because what happened 6 years ago. So those are my comments on it. Anything further, commissioners? Commissioner Higashi?
These three should all be on Oahu.
No,
we're
one
all-
from each island.
We're all virtual now. Geography has become less and less important.
I thought Maui wanted two.
Is there anything further, commissioners? Commissioners and parties, it's a delight to see you. I miss our presence together. I'm thankful for the work and energy that you bring to our collective efforts. Thank you for being here today. Is there any other business?
I just want to, from staff standpoint, want to thank all the commissioners. We do miss you. We appreciate your help and your input. I've been talking to some of you individually, and I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Commissioner Wong?
Chair, so that's a goal for the EXO and the staff to work on the rules then, correct?
Yes, with the feedback that they've received today.
Okay,
But those
thank
rules
you.
have to come to this body.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cabral?
I'd also suggest that maybe with technology prior, rather than just wait till we get together to look at it, if there's other things that we think of, we can obviously send it to staff between now and the nest gathering. And also if they send us some drafts, that might be an opportunity for us to look at it to, because I've already thought of a few more things that I'll think more seriously or, solidly about. So let's all maybe participate in the creation of this excellent concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabral. Is there anything further from the commissioners or the staff? If not, I will bang the virtual gavel and declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, commissioners.
Bye.
Aloha,
Wow.
everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see so many people with our land use shirts on. Yay. Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Riley, we're still alive.